We're recording, so welcome to VFX Pipeline Week 3. It all feels very formal once I press record. That's not a bird, that's a plane. I live under the flight path. So, what we're going to cover today is we're going to look at some of the software used in the VFX pipeline. So it's a bit of an overview of the tools and the software that's scattered all along the pipeline and how they relate to, and I'll particularly mention the creative steps and phases in the animation of the VFX pipeline. I've called this part 1. That's a bit of a thing just in case I suddenly haven't covered it all, and I can throw another one later on. But I actually feel I probably have covered it all. Maybe I haven't. It's just a sort of a surface view. And this whole VFX pipeline, there's quite a bit to it. Has any of you started to do any research into it at all? Have you started to investigate, start piecing together some research?
Yeah, a little bit.
Cool. And the thing is, I'm actually finding it to be a lot more complicated than I first thought. That there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of feedback loops within it. There's no one definitive pipeline. There's lots of different kind of pipelines within it. So it is quite confusing, and to try and make sense out of that is quite a big ask. So we're not asking for a definitive answer to this question. It's more of a general answer. And I think for me, it started to come together a little bit more clearly, I guess, or with a little bit more clarity, once I started to look at the tools involved and to see how they're scattered. And today I really just concentrated on the more, I guess, creative aspects of the software rather than the technical aspects. Because I mean, if I was going to really put down every piece of software used, I mean, I'd be putting down Word, I'd be putting down email, but I'd be putting down really some of the kind of the drier, more administrative stuff. There's a lot of programming involved as well, and I just haven't put any of that in because I'm making the assumption that you guys are coming from a creative perspective. Would that be a good assumption?
Very good assumption, not for me.
Yeah, same.
Cool. And there, the thing is about this whole thing of CG animation and VFX. There is obviously a heavy technical component to it, which kind of makes it very different from other kinds of artwork, I suppose. But the fact that there's some serious technology at play, and it's not like becoming just being a graphic designer, because a lot of those technologies have to intersect. I mean, it's feasible to think that you could be a graphic designer, and the only thing you'd need to know is having a fairly solid grasp of the Adobe Creative Suite, and it all works together, and it's pretty easy to kind of fit that together. But the thing is with this area of endeavor, that there's just a lot of things at play, and it's also evolving incredibly quickly as well. But to make sense of this whole VFX pipeline, I'm digressing, I think it makes sense to understand what the tools do, who uses them, and what they do with them. So I've tried to give a bit of an overview here. So I've broken it down into a couple of things. So we've got the modeling, and in modeling you would use, and this is, you know, forgive me for stating the obvious, but we need to start somewhere. Maya is an industry standard. You know, there's some modelers and parts of the industry that might use 3ds Max, and we'll talk about that later on. You know, you'd use, you know, tools like ZBrush or Mudbox. Then we might move down the pipeline a little bit in this particular area, and we might look at rigging. So there's, again, you'd use Maya, 3ds Max, and you might get into lifting the bonnet a little bit on those programs and start to use some of the programming language. I'll be completely honest with you, I don't get any of that programming language. Is it, just as a matter of interest, is there anyone here that does like to use programming, or can use it, or finds it easy?
I know more basic website stuff.
Yeah.
Like HTML and CSS.
Sorry.
I've kind of, because of the 3D stuff, I've got a little bit of a grasp on web.
Yeah.
VR. There's it's called A-Frame, which
Cool.
integrates with HTML. So, but
Just my put.
not so much Python or C++.
Cool.
Bailey's saying in chat that he can do Python and Vex and, I don't know, a bunch of other stuff that I don't understand.
Yeah.
nerdy, codey stuff.
Yeah.
Like it. Bailey, why
Nerd.
can't I see the chat?
I think because he's on the train. Oh no, he can speak. He speaks.
Yeah.
I don't know how loud it's coming through, so I just thought I'd be quiet.
You don't want to be that guy on the train.
Yeah, basically.
Fair enough. I don't know why I can't see the chat. I keep asking to pull it up. Anyway.
Coding is very creative. Like when you can actually create something just using like numbers and letters and stuff. It's crazy.
Creativity, problem solving.
Creativity and problem solving, yeah.
Absolutely. But let's sort of stick to the visual stuff, I guess.
Yes.
Then we've got a bit further down. Once you've built your model, you've rigged it or had it rigged, then you've got to start giving life to it. So again, you would use Maya, Max, Python, Motion Builder, and we'll look at what they all mean. So I don't know why my screen is changing rapidly or randomly. Then you might need to create some texture to that. So again, the software involved: Maya, 3ds Max, Photoshop. Good old Photoshop, the old staple. You know, when I was working in games, I did all my texturing in Photoshop. In fact, I spent most of my life in Photoshop during that period of my life. Mari, Mudbox, UV layout, body paint 3D, and we can talk about the advantages of those, and I'd be interested to know what you guys know about those.
Yeah, Substance Painter should be added to that list. Although I don't know how long it's going to last because Adobe just bought it, so I'm really not sure. But it's pretty much industry standard. That's it. Like, you know, Maya, ZBrush, and Substance Painter.
Yeah, I know. I had a sneaky feeling. Okay, so VFX, you might use Maya, 3ds Max, Houdini, RealFlow, lighting, Maya, 3ds Max, Python, RenderMan, V-Ray, Maxwell Render, Arnold. I didn't do it. I was meant to do some work on Arnold. I left that out. compositing, Maya, 3ds Max, Nuke, Photoshop. And a lot of these programs seem to intersect, and there's a lot of these programs seem to do everything. And it seems like, you know, Houdini can do almost everything. That it's one complete pipeline process in itself. So we'll delve a little bit deeper into some of these programs, and you know, I know you guys are immersed in them quite a bit at the moment. You're spending a lot of your time in Maya, and this is literally just an overview. And so I sort of feel that I might be saying some really basic stuff this evening, and apologies for that if this is all a little bit too rudimentary for you. But it seems that Maya is an industry standard piece of kit these days, used for creating interactive 3D assets, games, CGI films, TVs, motion graphics, architecture, and VFX. It was developed by Alias or Alias Wavefront and Disney, released in 1998, acquired by Silicon Graphics. Where I came into all of this seems like a million years ago, but in the mid 90s, I started off using Softimage, 3ds Max, and after spending a couple of years in Max, I then transferred over. The studio I was working for went on to Softimage, and you don't hear of Softimage at all anymore, but that was quite a steep learning curve and quite the transition, because 3ds Max is very easy. It's very soft. It's got nice little kind of icons, and it's very nice and fluffy to use. And I went to Softimage, which is mostly written in French, and it's quite a brutal kind of almost like a Soviet kind of interface to it. And then from there, and that was developed by Silicon Graphics. But then Maya came out, but there was this moment where there was this thing called Alias Wavefront, who bought out Maya, and then Maya came out, and I started to dabble in Maya before making a bit of a change in my career. So that was all, 20 odd years ago. Max is still around. So it's an industry, still, a respectable industry standard piece of software used to create, again, interactive 3D assets, games, CGI films, TV series, motion graphics, architecture, and VFX. A little bit of history there. It was sort of developed by Yoast, released by Autodesk in 1996. These days, it seems to be mostly used in the games industry, motion graphics, and possibly hear about it being used in architectural rendering a little bit. But it has actually been used on high-end feature films such as Avatar. But it seems to be the kind of the poor relation to Maya and other programs. Trivial fact, can anyone tell me why I've used a teapot in my slide?
Wasn't that like the first demo of 3D? Like that was the first like model they used to like show at all the SIGGRAPH and all the conventions and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right. When they first started using 3D software and it was blowing everyone's minds, the first thing they modeled was a teapot. And it's a sort of kind of this, it was a joke 20 years ago that when you sort of pull down your list of primitives or pre-made primitives, like spheres and cubes and all that sort of stuff, bits of pre-made geometry, the teapot was there, and apparently it's still there, which I think is hilarious that the teapot is still as a sort of a kind of an in-joke as part of Autodesk's suite of primitives, which is hilarious. So that amused me. So there seems to be this kind of 3ds Max Maya kind of thing. And so I thought it would be interesting to kind of look at the pros and cons. Why is one piece of software used over another? Because, it's such a massive investment in your time to learn this stuff. For me, it's, if I'm going to learn a bit of software, I just kind of want. I'm a simple bloke. I only want to know one bit of software. I don't want to know 3 or 4 pieces of 3D software because they're so complex to master. So I'm only going to learn one. And if I'm going to learn one, I'm surely going to learn the best one. Yeah, wouldn't that be or the one that's going to give me the most employment? Would that be a pretty good assumption?
Very much so.
Yeah. So why do people even use 3ds Max? I don't know. So
I've never tried it, so I can't really honestly say.
I'd never heard of it until this lecture.
Yay, new information. I felt like I was just telling you.
Didn't they used to be competitive?
No,
Sorry, Valerie?
I'm so new.
Didn't they used to be competitors, but then one brought the other out? Doesn't that Autodesk own it now?
Oh, sorry, I'm really struggling to understand you. It's a bit muffled.
He asked if they used to be competitors.
Yeah, kind of. But well, Autodesk was essentially in my kind of time has always owned 3ds Max, and it always had this super nice interface. It was sort of felt like it was easy to learn. It felt like there weren't too many components. It kind of dumbed its complexity down a little bit. It was really powerful, but on a user level, it felt really easy. Whereas Maya, again, was owned by Alias Wavefront and was a sort of was a competitor. Then Autodesk bought it up. So it's a bit weird how Autodesk is sort of supporting these two pretty kind of similar sorts of bits of software. It's not like there's like Photoshop and Illustrator, which are sort of diametrically opposed. They're kind of the same thing. It'd be like Photoshop coming up with another. It'd be like Adobe coming up with 2 versions of Photoshop. It'd be a bit weird. So I sort of was curious about that. So I just did a quick little kind of noodle around to see what people were saying. So modeling.
Adobe buying GIMP or something.
Adobe
Buying GIMP.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I suppose they've got Lightbox. Anyway, don't get into that. That's a whole other thing. So it's basically the workflow is a little faster in Max, and it's easier to create complex models. Although animation Maya tends to have the edge in its animation capability, and this has always been the case. This was the case 20 years ago. Rigging, Maya has the advantage with rigging. The thing that is really apparent is Max is easier to learn than Maya, and Maya has just got a lot more packed into it, so its capability is greater. Maya is much more customizable, so you can sort of bend it to your own workflow, or you can squeeze it into make it work to your pipeline. It's available in PC, Linux, and Macs. Oddly enough, Max is only available on PC. That was a real surprise to me, because when you're in it, it actually feels much more like an Apple Mac. Do you know what I mean? That sort of easy to use, kind of sort of simplistic use sort of interface. So the verdict I came up with was generally speaking, Max tends to be for lower end products like games and an architectural rendering, maybe a bit of product design. Whereas Maya has a lot more complexity, tends to be used for films. So Maya is a little bit more versatile, a lot more powerful. So that's kind of the verdict that came out with.
Blend is also becoming more and more, I don't know, used. Even though it's open source and stuff, it's I know it is within the web VR community because it's certain capabilities of exporting certain files and stuff, but
I don't know.
I believe it's starting to get used a lot more.
Okay.
I tried it years ago.
Yeah.
Made a yellow submarine, I think.
You did what?
Made a yellow submarine. I think it was a Linda tutorial I watched.
But you didn't like the Beatles.
I love the Beatles.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I love the Beatles.
I was just making an assumption from our conversation around did I like the Beatles or the Stones?
Oh, I love them all.
Digress. You're rooted in excellent. I thoroughly approve.
Rabbit holes. Back out.
Yeah, let's pop back out. Autodesk's Mudbox is proprietary computer-based 3D sculpting and painting tool developed by Autodesk. Its primary application is high-resolution digital sculpting, texture painting. Has a similar interface to Maya. Models can be started off using conventional three-dimensional tools and then sort of finished off or developed further using Mudbox. Does anyone use Mudbox?
Yes, I like it.
You like it?
Yeah, although not last year's, 2017 kept crashing all the time, so I didn't use it for very much. But last year's was good.
It's funny how the software goes through these patches where you just go, why don't you fix it? It's funny that, isn't it?
I guess because my year of CG Spectrum, we learnt Mudbox, and I'm more familiar with it than ZBrush at this point. But I want to learn ZBrush.
I'm glad you mentioned ZBrush. Developed by Pixelogic, 3D digital sculpting tool that creates high-end detailed models. It integrates with Maya and 3ds Max. That's a good thing. The main difference between ZBrush and more traditional modeling packages is that it's a little bit more akin to sculpting. So it's people are saying that it feels much more intuitive. Anyone got any thoughts on that? Because I can't see the chat. If anyone's typing into the chat, someone please sing out whatever you guys are saying.
Hey, what question did you just ask? Sorry, it just kind of cut out for me.
Sorry, Bailey. One is anyone using ZBrush?
No, I've had a try to have a bit of a go, but it seems to be it seems pretty complicated.
I'm still getting used to the interface because I'm used to Mudbox. So
It must be complicated if Bailey's saying it's complicated. I feel like Bailey can do anything.
The interface is not very user friendly, I don't think, anyway.
Okay. Good.
Whereas Mudbox is. That's my opinion.
There's a really good funny YouTube video which basically takes you through the basics of ZBrush, but it makes fun of the program at the same time. I'll see if I can find it and I'll put it in the group.
Cool. Do that. Motion Builder, another tool out of the Autodesk stable of animation tools. It plugs right into Maya, as you'd imagine it would do. It assists in making sense of motion captured data, using it to apply that data to a rigged model. Also can be used on its own to create animation using a range of advanced animation tools. Anyone used Motion Builder? had any experience of that?
No.
No,
I've
I
got no
haven't.
mocap data to work with.
Again, it was only, I believe it's not available on Mac, so I could use it now. I have a PC, but I'm pretty sure it's not available for a Mac. So.
Really?
Mhm.
When I hear stuff like that, I sort of think, wow, it's 2019.
Yeah.
Almost my whole working life has been this kind of dialogue between Mac and PC. It used to be the thing between Mac and PC fonts and, Mac and PC files. And I can't believe we're still having this discussion. It seems ridiculous.
It is a bit weird.
But Mari by Foundry, 3D painting and texturing software, works intuitively, is artist friendly. Again, present is not currently Mac friendly, but is slated to change very soon, as per their website this morning.
I don't get why things aren't Mac friendly though. Like why?
Not enough bang for buck, like spec for spec wise.
Just it's silly though.
Silly, I agree. Silly.
Like, come on.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, clearly, I'm a Mac user, and I literally have turned down jobs when they've shown me a PC.
Like, surely someone can be like, you know what? I think that we should make this friendly on a Mac as well.
It's actually
Surely.
classic you say that, Simon, because like the job I got like last year, I had it written into my contract that, because they were all Mac, that I must get a PC. That was one of my conditions for signing.
Really? That's hilarious.
Yeah.
When I took the job at the whole campus is on Mac, and the first thing you get when they on your first day, within the first half an hour, they hand you a brand new Mac, and I was like, yes, that's the only condition I would have worked there.
Can I get a job there?
Yeah, can you get me a job there? What the hell?
Yes,
I am thinking about getting my TAE, but that's probably not counts as there because it's for the vocational. So I don't know.
Yeah, that TAE that's a dark place.
It is. I tried it.
Yeah. Anyway, don't go down that rabbit hole.
All right, bye.
Body Paint 3D by Maxon, 3D CGI painting and texturing software, unlike Mari Body Paint, is Mac friendly. Woohoo! Anyone used Body Paint?
Oh, I haven't.
Nope.
Literally never heard of it before.
Yeah. Hope it's good. Houdini. Anyone heard of Houdini?
Oh, what's that?
Didn't look any good to me.
I've heard of it, but I have not used it.
Yeah, I've heard of it several times, but I've never actually. I didn't know what it was until I read this morning.
Ah, yes. Did my slides go up this morning?
Yeah, the file was there. There wasn't like I don't think you recorded a video, but there was definitely a file.
Must have been later this afternoon. It must have gone up around lunchtime, actually, because I only finished it at lunchtime. So Houdini by Side Effects. That was the roadshow that we went to see today. So Houdini, standard industry 3D CGI tool, primarily used for VFX. And, as I discovered today, because I didn't know a great deal about it, it's not been really part of my life, but there's a complete workflow there that you can do everything in it. You can animate in it. You can do character animation in it. You can do all of those things. So it seems like it's a tool that will do everything. Whereas my previous understanding of it was just sat within the pipeline as what it was designed to make visual effects. So it integrates with other pipelines, using Maya, Max, etc. creates realistic effects such as fluids, water, etc., lava, that sort of stuff. The generic term pyro for smoke, fire, explosions, etc. Cloth, hair and fur, particles such as sand and snow, and crowd simulation. So we saw some demonstrations of that today, and it's just absolutely incredible what it can do. Incredibly powerful. We had some people over from the States demonstrating it that are on this roadshow. And one of the things that one of the demonstrators said, which I thought was really interesting, was that basically there's a dearth of people that can use Houdini, and they're essentially vacuuming up everyone that's graduating out of animation schools and that can handle Houdini. So I asked the question, was how long and how steep is the learning curve? And the answer I got is, no, it's possible to learn it within 3 to 4 months. Yes, that would be quite a solid learning curve. It's probably a good idea to specialize in an area, because the film industry is, it's a production line, and so they don't want people that are okay at every aspect of that production line. They want people that are really, really pointed and targeted at certain aspects. So, if you become a great person with fluids in Houdini, there's work for you. Or if you particularly like, smoke and explosions, so you specialize in pyro, there's work for you. Or maybe you become great at particles, maybe you become great at crowd simulation. And if you can put those in your portfolio, what they're saying to us is that there's work there. So it's a great entry point into the film industry. So and there seems to be well-paid jobs, so that's a good thing. When I was teaching graphic design, I couldn't always say that to my students, because there were so many students coming out of various art colleges with graphic design degrees. So, only the best could get jobs. But at least with this, there is absolutely, work there. That's a good thing. RealFlow is another fluid and dynamic simulation tool for the 3D and visual effects industry, developed by Next Limited Technologies in Madrid. Probably written in Spanish. RealFlow is a standalone application used in conjunction with other CGI programs, very much like Houdini. Simulates fluids, water surfaces, fluid-solid interactions, rigid bodies, soft bodies, and meshes. Then we've got RENDERMAN, developed by Pixar for their own projects, and now available to other companies. It's a photorealistic 3D rendering software. It's, what more can I say? Yeah, they produced it for their own projects, and it's now available to for everyone if you can afford the license. And lastly, Nuke Compositor, a node-based digital compositing application developed by the Foundry and used for television and film post-production. So this is the program that stitches it all together into a believable and realistic environment. So there we have it. A much shorter, hopefully less dry lecture than last week. Apologies for last week. It probably was a bit sort of, it certainly lacked pictures. We've tackled some of these questions. I'd like you to get involved with the discussion forum. There wasn't a discussion forum last week. Apologies for that. But this week, if you could leap in there and have a some interaction, that's always good. You might have to go and do some research. So the questions I've asked you is pros and cons between Maya and 3ds Max, Mudbox and ZBrush, Mari and Body Paint, RealFlow and Houdini, because these are serious questions, because there seems to be so many pieces of software out there that are very similar. It's almost like the Ford Holden debate or the Mac PC debate. So, having informed opinions around software is going to really help you, I think. To understand why are you using Maya? Why are you using Maya instead of 3ds Max? Probably the answer is because that's what we're teaching you. But if that's the case, why are we doing that? Any thoughts on that?
It's industry standard, pretty much.
But I guess, what industry? No.
As in it's, I think Maya's broad over a bunch of industries, I guess.
Right, I'm going to stop recording just so I can